Darkness had a taste. Captain Rian Holt discovered that the moment he stepped onto the shattered walkway of the alien vessel. The air was thin and stale, laced with a metallic tang like old blood and dying machines. His boots crunched on crystallized coolant frozen in jagged purple shards. Every flickering light cast long, shivering shadows that seemed ready to move when he wasn't looking. This place shouldn't still be running. Lieutenant Mara Chin muttered behind him, sweeping her rifle across the corridor. Half the hull's gone. Holt nodded. Sensors confirmed the ship had been adrift for months, maybe years. Life support barely existed. Gravity flickered like a slow heartbeat, threatening to give out at any moment. And yet, the scanners on the Solace, Holt's ship, had detected something impossible. 50,000 heartbeats. Holt had expected a lost colony ark, a hibernation cruiser, something grand. What he found instead felt closer to a graveyard the universe had forgotten. A child's toy floated past him, a small cube decorated with shifting holographic patterns. It spun, slowly, bumping against his armor before drifting away again. He turned it over in his mind. Children, why children? Captain, Chief Medic Varen called from a side passage. You need to see this. Holt followed, stepping through a broken doorway into a chamber the size of a stadium. Rows upon rows of bunks, tiny, packed tight like sardines. Thousands of them. A cold blue light illuminated motionless shapes curled under thermal sheets, skeletal frames rising and falling with shallow breaths. Some were awake, enormous black eyes staring at him without sound. Their skin was silvery, almost translucent, showing faint purple veins beneath. I've never seen this species, Varen whispered. And they're starving. Holt swallowed, jaw tightening. Where are the adults? Mara asked. No one dared answer. A holographic terminal flickered awake beside Holt's hand. He tapped the cracked screen. Alien text scrolled. System logs, disposal directives, expiration protocols. He frowned, attempting to decode the symbols. Varen's gloved hand hovered over a tiny alien child, checking vitals. They'll all be dead within a week, he said solemnly. A sharp click echoed behind them, a recorded voice sputtering from hidden speakers, distorted with static. Clasified cargo. Gensid batch 700. Status, defective. Directive, abandon. The team froze. Defective, Mara whispered, rage brewing in the word. They left them, too. A sudden alarm blared, the very walls screaming. Red lights surged through the cavernous space. Intruder detected. Cleanse the unsanctioned. Panels opened high above as sleek black drones descended, blades clicking into place like hungry teeth. Holt raised his rifle. Form a perimeter. But before the first drone reached them, something unexpected happened. The nearest group of children covered their ears and whimpered, and the drones jerked mid-air. Their lights flickered. One by one they fell, slamming lifeless to the deck. What the hell? Mara breathed. Holt noticed then, a young alien girl standing unsteadily from her bunk, silver eyes glowing like liquid stars. She stared at him with a mix of terror and hope. She whispered, barely audible, "You came back for us?" Holt opened his mouth, but the ship trembled violently. Alarms cascaded through the corridors. Core collapse. 10 minutes until total destruction. Varen cursed. "Captain, we need to leave." Holt stared at the thousands, the tens of thousands of fragile faces watching him. Without him, they would die here, alone in the dark, discarded as mistakes. He clenched his jaw. "No one leaves," he growled. "We evacuate every single child." Mara stared at him like he'd lost his mind. "All 50,000? We don't have. We'll make a way." Holt lifted the silver-eyed girl into his arms. She clung to him like the universe's last lifeline. As the corridor collapsed behind them, Holt gave the order that would change history. "We're saving them all." But Holt didn't yet know. Someone was watching, and humanity was about to break the galaxy's most forbidden law. The ship's trembling grew worse, groaning like a wounded beast as structural alarms screamed from every direction. Captain Rian Holt lifted the silver-eyed girl higher against his chest, feeling her tiny fingers clutch desperately at his armor. "We're not dying here," he murmured, more a vow to himself than to her. Mara hustled beside him. guiding their route through collapsing metal corridors. The dim lights flickered, and every time they stabilized, Holt saw more children staring silently from alcoves, too scared or weak to cry out. So many. Too many. Varen, Holt called into his comm. I want triage stations near the docking bay. We carry or drag anyone who can't walk. No exceptions. Static crackled, followed by the medic's tense response. Understood. But Captain, there's a problem. There always was. What is it? The Solace can only take maybe 1,000. A beat. 10%. Maybe less. Holt inhaled sharply. He already knew the truth, but hearing it aloud made the weight nearly unbearable. The girl in his arms whimpered. He looked down into those silver eyes again. Eyes that held too much sadness for someone so small. Mara slowed, lowering her voice. If we don't choose, we lose them all. Her meaning was clear. Pick some. Leave the rest. It wasn't cruelty. It was math. No. Holt refused to let his voice waver. There's always another way. A small voice piped up behind him. There was someone else once. They turned. A slightly older alien boy stood on trembling legs, too thin for his height. Our caretakers, they chose themselves to escape. They left us to die. Only she stayed. He pointed a shaky claw at the girl, the one in Holt's arms. Holt stopped walking. He looked at her again, properly this time. She wasn't like the others. Her markings were different, swirling white like stardust patterns down her forearms. The others watched her with awe and something deeper, trust. What's your name? Holt asked softly. The girl swallowed. Her voice was like a feather brushing air. Leora, a beautiful name. Too beautiful for a tomb. The children gathered around them as if sensing that this human meant hope. Maybe the first hope they had ever known. Holt crouched slightly to meet the terrified eyes at their level. I need your help if we're all going to make it. Can you walk? Tiny heads nodded. Too many shook no. Mara's breath hitched. Rian, we can't do this alone. Which was exactly why they wouldn't be alone. Holt tapped his comm again. Bridge, this is Holt. Prepare for emergency tow operations. I want salvage clamps on every intact bulkhead of this alien ship. Sir, are you towing that? The helmsman stammered. Unless you've got a bigger option hiding somewhere. He didn't wait for a reply. Get it done. He stood again, adjusting his grip on Leora. We move. Everyone stays together. The children followed, some limping, some dragging themselves, but all moving because Holt told them they mattered. A sudden tremor rocked the deck, sending pipes bursting and sparks raining down like fireflies. Holt shielded Leora's head as metal shards bounced off his armor. We're out of time, Mara shouted. Just ahead, heavy doors slid open to reveal a maintenance bay barely holding pressure. Beyond it lay the docking tube connecting to the Solace. Varen and a handful of Marines helped aliens through, handing out oxygen masks and thermal blankets. The bay lights flickered, then died completely. Emergency red strobes pulsed like a panicked heartbeat. And then, a shadow moved. From behind a row of cargo crates stepped a tall, humanoid alien armored head to toe in black metal, its helmet featureless. It held a weapon shaped like a hooked blade and rifle fused together, elegant, deadly. Mara raised her gun instantly. Don't move. The alien tilted its head, studying Holt, studying the children clinging to him like frightened birds. A cold, synthesized voice rasped. Unauthorized retrieval detected. These units are property of the Sovereign Dominion. Leora shivered, tightening her grip on Holt. He gently handed her to Varen, then stepped forward, placing himself between the intruder and the children. Not anymore, Holt said quietly. The alien's visor glowed crimson in response. Corrective protocol initiated. It sprang forward with inhuman speed. Holt barely had a second to brace himself before the blade came crashing down toward his throat. One wrong move now, and the universe loses the only man who ever chose to care. The alien warrior's blade sliced downward with lethal precision. Holt twisted one shoulder back. The blade screeched across his chest plate, carving a molten groove inches from his throat. Sparks scattered like angry stars. He countered with a punch to the warrior's ribs, but his fist struck the armor with a metallic thud that reverberated painfully up his arm. This thing was built for killing. Back! Keep the children back! Holt barked. The Marines herded the small aliens behind a toppled support beam as the creature snapped its blade forward again. Holt ducked, rolling across the deck. He fired a burst into its midsection. The bullet sparked, ricocheted uselessly. Armor too dense. The warrior advanced silently, blade raised for a killing strike. Then, a piercing cry. Leora! She stood trembling, but her eyes, those liquid silver eyes, blazed like twin suns. Stop, she screamed. It didn't sound like just one voice anymore. It sounded like thousands. The warrior froze mid-strike. Not by choice. Every joint locked, as if invisible chains pinned it in place. Its armor pulsed with glitching lights, systems failing. Leora staggered, clutching her temples, veins glowing with pale light. Holt realized what she was doing. She was inside the enemy's mind. The creature convulsed violently, drops of oil leaking from its armor cracks. Holt used the opening, grabbing the alien by its blade arm and slamming it into the bulkhead. He drove his boot into its chest and ripped the weapon from its grasp. The warrior collapsed, motionless. Leora fell to her knees, gasping. Holt rushed to her, catching her before she hit the floor. "You did good," he said, voice steady but heart pounding. "You saved lives." "I heard it," she whispered shakily. "The Dominion, they are coming. Many. To finish us." Mara swore under her breath. "Of course they are." Varen helped stabilize Leora, with a med patch that glowed softly on her neck. Holt stood, activating his comm. "Hold to Solace. 2 clamps live." "We're hooked in." "Captain," replied the helm. "But the alien ship's reactor is melting down faster than expected. We have 9 minutes before it turns into a newborn star. 9 minutes to rescue 50,000 children." Mara stepped close, worry etched in her expression. "We can't evacuate that many that fast, even with carts and stretchers." "We don't need to move them all." Holt cut her off. "We need to move this ship." Mara stared. "You want to jump to FTL with this giant rust bucket chained to us?" Holt didn't hesitate. "Yes. That could tear both ships apart," Varen warned. "And if we sit still," Holt replied, "we all burn anyway." He turned back to the children, his voice firm but gentle. "Listen to me. We're going somewhere safe. You'll need to be brave for a little longer. Stick together. Hold on to each other." They nodded. Some held hands. Some wrapped tiny arms around others who couldn't stand. Little faces stared up at him like he was the only star left in the sky. "Why would you save us?" one small boy asked. Holt crouched down to meet his gaze. "Because someone should have." Leora leaned against him, her voice fragile but hopeful. "My people said we were mistakes, that we were made wrong." Holt shook his head, unwavering. "Then your people were cowards." She blinked at him, unsure but wanting to believe. The ship groaned again, a deep metallic wail. Lights flickered. Pressure dropped. A recorded voice echoed through the corridors, the same merciless tone as before. "Containment failure. Terminate biological waste." Panels opened, but this time, no drones. Instead, the walls themselves unfolded, revealing automated flommers starting to glow ominous orange. Holt's heart stopped for half a beat. "Mara, shut them down." "I'm trying." Orange intensified. Children screamed. Leora clung to Holt's arm, silver eyes wide. And that was when a thunderous explosion rocked the ship, making the deck buck beneath their feet. Mara stumbled. "What now?" Varen peeked through a cracked viewport, then paled. "Captain, Dominion warships just dropped into real space. Dozens. Maybe more." Holt stared, jaw tightening. The enemy had arrived before the countdown ended. Not to rescue. Not to negotiate. To finish the job. 50,000 children. One dying ship. A fleet determined to erase them forever. And Holt? He just ran out of time. The view through the cracked viewport was a nightmare made real. Dominion warships, black, angular, predatory, emerged from FTL one after another until the stars themselves disappeared behind steel and fury. They weren't here to negotiate. They were here to erase evidence. "Comms ping incoming," said Mara, voice tense. Visual 2. Put it through, Holt ordered, lifting Leora into his arms again. She clung to him, trembling. A hologram flickered to life, a towering alien with skin like burnished iron and eyes as cold as space. His uniform gleamed with metals Holt didn't care about. His voice oozed smug superiority. I am High Admiral. His gaze dragged across Holt, then to the children hiding behind him. Those creatures do not belong to you. Holt stepped forward, jaw grinding. They're children. They're alive. That's enough. They are failed prototypes, Jur corrected coolly. Discarded by the Dominion. Your interference violates command protocol. Your protocol is genocide, Holt snapped. Jur's expression didn't change. If anything, he looked bored. Deliver the defects. Or perish with them. Leora whimpered. Holt held her closer. You'll have to go through me. Jur leaned in a hologram, tone dripping disdain. Human. As if it were an insult. You truly believe your kind can defy the Dominion? Holt didn't flinch. We already are. The hologram flickered out. Silence followed, thick, suffocating. Then the Dominion ships powered weapons. Mara grabbed Holt's arm. We have to jump now. The maintenance bay doors slammed shut as Varen and the Marines rushed children into the docking tube. The Solace trembled, its engines pushing past safe limits to accelerate the tow. Lights flickered violently. Holt tapped his comm. Hearthside control. Engage FDL the moment clamps stabilize. Even a fraction of a second counts. The helm protested. Captain, if that alien ship isn't fully secured. It's that, Holt said, or it explodes with all of them inside. A deep, sickening metallic moan echoed through the corridors. Time was up. Holt turned to Leora, brushing dust from her silver hair. When you reach safety, go with Varen. He'll protect you. Her eyes widened. You're not coming? I have to buy time, he said softly. But I don't want to lose you, she whispered, clutching his armor with desperate little fingers. You're the only one who stayed. That hit deeper than any blade. Holt breathed out slowly and rested his forehead against hers. I'm not leaving. I'm just making sure you get home. The ship lurched as Dominion plasma blasts struck the hull. Sparks rained, bulkheads groaned, small bodies cried out in terror. Mara yelled from the corridor. Rian, we have to go now. Holt scooped Leora back into his arms. I made you a promise, he murmured. All of you. And humans don't break promises. He raced into the docking tube as klaxons screamed louder. Core meltdown imminent. Reactor critical. Behind them, the alien ship's internal systems began triggering self-destruct protocols. Asterisk Mara sealed the inner hatch. Hearthside status. Holt barked into the comm. Tension crackled. We're locked. We can jump. Do it. Silence. Then, FTL in 3, 2. Holt wrapped himself around Leora as gravity vanished and stars stretched into ribbons. 1. Everything exploded into white. The violent transition slammed them onto the deck of the Solace. Children screamed, some from fear, some from pain, but they were alive. Holt staggered to his feet and rushed to a viewport. The Dominion fleet blurred into distant star trails. They'd done it. They'd escaped. Cheers erupted across the ship. Relief, joy, disbelief. But Holt's heart hammered with anxiety. Where's the alien ship? He asked. It didn't come through, Mara whispered, face draining of color. The clamps failed. Holt grabbed the rail, so hard his knuckles cracked. 50,000 children safe. But their home, what little home they had, was gone. Leora tugged gently on his sleeve, voice quivering. Captain, what happens now? Holt knelt, meeting her frightened gaze. We make a new home. Together. That's what humans do. She didn't speak. She just pressed her tiny forehead against his chest and closed her eyes, trusting him with everything she had left. Behind them, Varen approached, grim. Captain, we have another problem. Holt stood, weary, bigger than 50,000 terrified orphans. Varen handed him a data tablet. Yes, he said gravely, because the Dominion just broadcast a galaxy-wide alert. Holt frowned. About what? Varen swallowed. You, sir. His finger tapped the screen. Wanted, Captain Rian Holt. Charge, theft of military property. Reward, term of execution. Saving them was only the beginning. Now the entire galaxy want him dead. The celebration died as quickly as it started. Crew members stared at the wanted notice like it might infect them through the screen. Holt felt their fear, not of the Dominion, but of what he represented now. A man who had stood against an empire. A man who made the galaxy change. That kind of courage terrified people. Mara stepped forward, placing a firm hand on Holt's shoulder. You did what had to be done. Anyone else would have left them. That's the problem, Holt muttered. Anyone else did. Varen cleared his throat. We have another issue. Supplies. Holt exhaled slowly. How bad? We stocked for one convoy escort, not a refugee crisis. Varen rubbed his temples. In 3 days, we'll be out of food, water, blankets, everything. Holt looked back at the frightened children huddled in the medical bay. Tiny bones visible beneath stretched skin. Big eyes searching for hope. When we find a port, Holt said, we'll get what we need. Mara shook her head. We dock anywhere. Dominion ships will be waiting with guns and lawyers. Holt felt Leora slip her hand into his, small, cold, and shaking. We could hide, she whispered. She was trying to be brave, to be strong. He knelt down, so they were eye level again. We won't hide from monsters, he said gently. We'll stand up so they can't hurt anyone else. Leora blinked. Uncertain, but hope sparked behind those silver eyes. A quiet voice interrupted. Captain Holt. Sergeant Akeem, one of the Marines, stood at attention, but wouldn't quite meet Holt's gaze. There's something you should know, he said, shifting uncomfortably. Some of the crew, they're saying we should give the kids back. Madaspun. Cowards. Akeem shook his head. Not all. Some think the Dominion would show mercy if we... Mercy. Holt snapped. The Dominion defines mercy as killing them faster. Akeem swallowed. I know, sir. But fear makes people stupid. Holt straightened, voice calm but carrying steel. If anyone threatens these children, he said quietly, they answer to me. That was enough to send Akeem back to duty. Leora tugged his hand again. Captain, why do they hate us so much? He hated that she seemed to already know the answer. Still, he said it aloud. Because they're afraid of what you might become. She looked down. We didn't ask to be made this way. Holt's heart clenched. No child asks to be made, he said softly. But every child deserves a chance to live. Mara approached with a datapad. I found something. A haven. A small neutral station, Ridgepoint, far from Dominion space. Holt scanned the data. Population, maybe 400. Independent. They trade supplies for repairs and services. Holt nodded. Set course. Full burn. As Mara walked toward the bridge, Leora tugged his uniform again. Rian, would the Dominion really chase us across the stars? They'd cross galaxies, Holt said, to pretend they're still in control. Leora frowned. My people were supposed to protect us, but they made us into mistakes. No, Holt said, eyes fierce. They made you powerful, and they're terrified of that. The Solace lurched as it dropped out of FTL. The viewport revealed the tiny station ahead, a collection of mismatched modules orbiting a blue-green moon. Hope. For the first time in days, Holt tasted it. But Varen's voice shattered it. Multiple heat signatures inbound, extreme velocity. Holt's stomach sank. No, Mara whispered from the helm. They tracked us. Dominion interceptors, sleek and jagged like blades, shot into the area, cutting off escape vectors. Shields up, Holt barked. Klaxons wailed. Children screamed again. Holt grabbed Leora protectively as the ship rocked under the first barrage. Consoles sparked. Crew shouted damage reports. Mara yelled over the chaos. Captain, Ridgepoint's hailing us. They're telling us to turn off weapons and surrender the children. Holt's jaw tightened. Of course they are. He thought about stepping into the viewport and sending a message that would echo through history. Humanity doesn't surrender children. Instead, he looked down at Leora, shaking, terrified, and made a decision that would write itself into every Dominion nightmare. Put me through to the Dominion flagship. The bridge fell silent. Rian, Mara warned. If they want someone, he said, standing tall, they want me. Leora's hand clamped around his wrist. No, don't leave us. He gently brushed her cheek, voice steady. I'm not leaving you. I'm buying time. She felt it, not a lie, a promise. Jur's hologram burst onto the bridge. Again that smug, cold stare. You cannot win this, human. You're right, Holt replied. Not here. Then he leaned in, voice a razor of defiance. But I'm sure as hell gonna make you bleed for every inch you take. Jur's eyes narrowed. Then you die first. Plasma batteries charged. The Dominion preparing a killing blow. Holt stood firm. To save the children's future. Holt is ready to sacrifice his own. The bridge shook with every hit. Consoles sparked like lightning trapped beneath glass. Half the crew were bracing themselves against walls just to stay upright. Shields at 30%. Mara shouted. Varen stumbled in, holding a trembling toddler in his arms. Captain, we can't keep this up. We need a miracle. Holt glanced at Leora, small, frightened, but clutching his sleeve with a grip that meant survival. He knelt, heart aching. You're safe. I'm right here. Her silver eyes shimmered, tears welling. I don't want safe, she whispered. I want you. Before Holt could react, another blast hit. The toddler wailed. Crew braced for decompression. This couldn't go on. Not like this. Holt tapped his comm, engineering, reroute every ounce of power to the shields. What about weapons? Came the terrified reply. We aren't killing our way out of this, Holt said. We're protecting them. The Dominion ships unleashed another furious volley. The Solace groaned, a dying cry of stressed metal. Holt felt something inside him crack. Not fear, but fury. He stood tall, facing Jur's hologram again. Why are you so afraid of them? Holt demanded. They're children. They are weapons, Jur hissed. Unstable, unfinished. They would burn the stars if left unchecked. Leora shrank back behind Holt, but she was listening. Every hateful word. And you would extinguish that potential. Holt replied. Out of fear. Jur leaned closer, cold voice twisting into contempt. Out of control. Something snapped in Leora then. Not a cry, not a scream. A pulse. It radiated from her chest, through the deck, through the atmosphere itself. Holt felt it like a shock wave through his mind. Sorrow, outrage, hope, all poured into one unstoppable surge. The lights flared white. Jur's hologram glitched violently. Systems froze. Every screen flashed a cascade of alien code. Mara gasped. What's happening? Leora stepped forward, eyes glowing bright like twin galaxies swirling into collapse and rebirth. Every child aboard began to glow the same eerie silver. A psychic storm. Holt reached out, instinctively, but Leora had already floated inches off the deck, hair drifting weightlessly around her. Varen fell to his knees. Captain, she's linking them all. And outside, every Dominion starfighter jerked violently off course, spinning, drifting, colliding. Power systems shut down simultaneously across the fleet. An EMP strike? No, something deeper. Holt realized it right then. They were connected through her. Not weapons, a network. A family forged in pain. Jur screamed from the hologram, but it came out distorted. Stop. Shut. It. Down. Leora's voice echoed through the ship, layered, a chorus of thousands. We're not broken. We are not mistakes. We will not be erased. She collapsed suddenly, the glow flickering out as she dropped like a stone. Holt caught her before she hit the deck. Her pulse fluttered weakly. She looked up at him, eyes dimming. Did I help? She whispered. Holt's heart clenched as he stroked her hair back. You saved every one of us. Jur's hologram sputtered violently before stabilizing. He stared at Holt in horror, not fear of Holt, fear of her. You don't understand, Jur growled. Their minds weren't finished. They will unravel. They will. Holt cut him off, voice shaking with rage. They deserve the chance to grow. Jur's voice dropped to a chilling. Jur's voice dropped to a chilling whisper. You're playing with fire that can end galaxies. Holt stood, lifting Leora gently. Then we'll teach that fire how to warm the universe instead of burn it. He ended the transmission without waiting for a reply. The crew stared at him, not frightened now, but inspired. Mara's voice cracked as she stepped closer. Rian, you just changed the galaxy. He didn't feel proud, just tired. Leora's tiny hand curled into his uniform. Don't leave, she rasped. Never, Holt promised. Alarms shifted tone. No longer warnings of collapse, but system reboot. Sensors flickered back to life. Captain, Mara said quietly, we have a window to escape. Dominion ships are still offline. Holt nodded. Course. Anywhere but here. It was enough. As stars stretched and blurred once more, Holt held Leora tight. She had saved them all, but Holt saw the strain etched into her face. Power had a price, and hers was coming due. She saved the universe from death. Now her own life hangs by a thread. The solace burst out of FDL with a violent shudder, as if space itself tried to hold them back. Emergency lights flickered across the deck. Sparks still hung in the air from overloaded circuits. But none of that mattered. Leora wasn't waking up. Holt carried her into the med bay, every step heavier than the last. Varen rushed over with scans, already running. What's happening to her? Holt demanded. Varen's expression was grim. Her neural pathways are burning out. Overstimulation. She pushed herself far beyond any safe limit. Mara arrived seconds later. How do we help her? Varen looked between them, jaw tight. We don't. No human tech can fix this. She needs her kind. Maybe. Holt gently placed Leora on the med table, brushing a stray silver strand from her face. He whispered to her, even though she couldn't hear. You're not dying. Not after what you just fought to live for. Children watched through the glass, wide-eyed, terrified. He forced himself to step outside, where Mara waited. Look, she said gently. There's something else. A transmission came through while we jumped. Holt frowned. Dominion. Mara hesitated, then shook her head. No, the Kalari Commonwealth. That name meant something. An independent alien government. Small, scientific, secretive. They say, Mara continued cautiously, that these children, they were Kalari once. Holt's heart kicked hard in his chest. Explain. Mara handed over a datapad. Documents. DNA schematics. Prototype files. They were taken, she said, voice tight. Stolen for experiments. Holt stared at the screen. A picture of silver-eyed adults who looked like older versions of Leora. So Leora did have a people. A home. A future. Varen emerged from the medbay. Captain, she's stable for now. But without a compatible neural healer, he didn't finish the sentence. Holt understood anyway. Send a reply. Holt ordered. Tell the Kalari to meet us. Mara nodded, hesitant still. There's more. She showed another document. A Dominion warrant, updated only minutes ago. Wanted for galaxy-wide treason. Death sentence. Immediate. Location bounty on all human ships. Anyone helping Holt was now marked for death. That's quite the promotion, Holt muttered darkly. Mara's voice softened. You saved them, Rian. Don't regret that. He didn't. Not for a second. But regret wasn't the same as fear. Because the Dominion would hurt anyone who stood beside humanity now. He took a steadying breath. He couldn't show cracks. Not in front of thousands who needed him to be unbreakable. All right, Holt said. Where's our rendezvous? Mara pulled up the map. Kalari envoy agreed to meet at Erelun Station. It's remote. We can get there in 2 jumps. Said it, Holt said. She nodded and turned away, but Holt grabbed her arm gently. Thank you. Her lips twitched upward. Don't die, and we'll call it even. He allowed himself a faint smile before returning to the medbay windows. Leora's small body looked so fragile beneath the monitors, tiny chest rising with shallow breaths. The galaxy believed she was a threat. Holt knew she was a miracle. A quiet voice spoke from behind him. Captain, Sergeant Akeem again. Holt didn't turn. If you're here to ask me to surrender. No, sir, Akeem interrupted. I'm here to apologize. That took Holt off guard. Akeem looked hollow, like guilt was eating him alive. I heard some crew talking, he said, convinced they can trade the children, trade Leora, to save themselves. Holt's blood ran cold. Ooh, Akeem swallowed hard. They didn't know I was listening. But they're planning something once we reach Erelun. The captain's voice dropped to deadly calm. Tell me every name. Akeem shook his head. I don't know yet, but there's more. He handed Holt a sealed envelope. Old-fashioned, untraceable. It was left outside your quarters. Holt opened it. One sentence. A captain cannot protect what he cannot control. Inside the envelope, a small lock of silver hair. Leora's. Holt's pulse surged like a war drum. Someone had been close enough to touch Leora, to harm her, and no alarms triggered. A traitor, on his ship, watching them. He took a slow, trembling breath. Get Mara and Varen. Quietly. No combs. No chatter. We contain this. Akeem nodded sharply and slipped away. Holt turned back to the med table. He took Leora's hand, so tiny within his. I won't let them take you, he whispered. Her eyelids fluttered, just once, as if she heard, as if she believed. But beyond the medbay door, footsteps retreated into the shadows. Not every monster wore Dominion armor. Some hid behind human faces. The Dominion wants her dead. But the real betrayal has already begun on Holt's own ship. Holt paced outside the medbay window like a caged predator, eyes locked on Leora, her chest rising too slowly under the glow of monitors. Every breath she took felt borrowed. He replayed the message in his mind. A captain cannot protect what he cannot control. He wanted to believe it was just intimidation. But the lock of silver hair said otherwise. Someone had touched her. Someone had gotten close enough to hurt her. A Marine approached quietly. Captain, Mara, and Varen are waiting in tactical. Holt nodded, eyes never leaving Leora's fragile body. I'll be back soon. He walked down the corridor, shoulders squared, spine rigid. Not with pride, but with rage he didn't dare release. The tactical room doors sealed shut behind him. Mara leaned over the table, arms tense. We did a quiet check. No sign of who left that message. Varen rubbed his eyes. Whoever it is knows the ship's blind spots. Knows our crew. Knows how to make us afraid. Holt braced his hands on the table. We can't let fear do their work for them. Mara nodded, jaw tight. So we hunt them before they move. Just then, alarms blared. Security breach, medbay. Holt was running before the words finished flashing. He slammed the medbay door release so hard the panel cracked. Inside, chaos. Monitors blared red warnings. Ventilation filters hissed, pumping in a nerve agent that paralyzed anyone unmasked. Varen's team scrambled to switch systems offline. The children inside were coughing, tiny bodies collapsing. And Leora, her fingers twitched, reaching weakly toward Holt. Eyes filled with terror as invisible chains bound her mind and muscles again. Emergency evac now. Holt roared. Marines stormed the med bay, scooping up unconscious children. Holt grabbed Leora and ripped off his own mask to seal it over her face. He breathed toxic raw air into his lungs as he carried her. Someone had tried to kill her. Again, when the doors sealed and the gas vented, Holt nearly collapsed. Varen shoved an antidote injector into his neck. The world snapped back into focus, sharp and furious. Holt turned on the crew present. None dared meet his gaze. Somebody here, he growled, would rather follow Dominion orders than a human conscience. He didn't shout. He didn't need to. Silence choked the air. Mara pulled up a datapad, voice trembling in controlled fury. I ran cross-checks. One crew member accessed the medbay ventilation shortly before the attack. She slid the pad across the table. Corporal Vale, Communications Division. Holt closed his eyes, not in relief or victory, but heartbreak. Vale was only 20. Joined to save people, or so he'd said. Bring him in, Holt ordered. The Marines dragged Vale into the room minutes later, thrashing, shouting. They're monsters. You don't see what they are. They'll tear us apart once they grow strong enough. Holt stepped close, too close, his voice a knife. They're children. No, sir. They're weapons wearing children's skins. Vale cried, tears cutting down his face. You're risking humanity for alien parasites. Holt stared at him. No rage, just a tragic understanding. Fear twists minds better than hate ever could. Put him in secure holding, Holt said quietly. No one harms him. The Marines hauled him away. Mara gripped Holt's arm. This isn't over. No, Holt whispered. It's just beginning. Varen burst through the door then, face drained of all color. Captain, he rasped. The Kalari envoy replied again. Holt braced. What did they say? Varen handed him a translated message. Kalari High Scholar Eshari. The children you carry are ours by blood, but they are no longer Kalari. A human saved them, so a human must lead them. Holt swallowed hard. They want me to bring Leora to them. Varen shook his head slowly. No, they want you to become responsible for all 50,000. Holt froze, staring at the words that rewrote his entire destiny. A captain, a fugitive, now a father by declaration of a species he hadn't met. Before Holt could speak, the ship lurched violently, alarms screaming new warnings. Captain, Mara yelled over comms. Dominion Dreadnought just dropped out of FTL. They followed us. Juror's voice broadcasted into every speaker, cold and triumphant. You cannot run from consequence, nor from destiny. Surrender the weapon, child, or watch your crew die. Leora stirred weakly in Holt's arms, silver eyes filled with fear and apology. Holt held her closer. You don't apologize for surviving, he whispered. Then he glared at the viewport, watching the Dominion's greatest warship blot out the stars. The galaxy demands he choose. Save the children, or save his crew. But Holt refuses to choose. He will defy the galaxy instead. The Dominion Dreadnought drifted into view like an eclipse of iron, so massive the stars vanished behind it. Weapon ports glowed red, hungry for destruction. Jitter's final message repeated through the solace. Surrender the weapon, child, or perish. Holt stood in the center of the bridge, Leora weak in his arms. The children huddled behind the medbay glass, wide eyes reflecting the looming darkness outside. Mara's voice shook with fury. We can't outrun this one. Varen gripped a railing. We won't survive another volley. Captain, what now? Holt inhaled slowly. Fear tried to claw its way up his throat, but fear had already lost. He set Leora gently into a padded seat. Her hand tugged his trembling fingers. We can still run, she whispered, fighting for breath. Holt knelt, pressing his forehead to hers. No, not from who we are. Her eyes glimmered, silver light igniting like starlight returning to a dying universe. He stood and faced the crew, his voice low but unbreakable. When humanity finds children abandoned, we pick them up. We carry them home. That's our law. That's our oath. No one argued. No one doubted. This was the moment history waited for. Open hailing channel, Holt ordered. Jitter's face snapped onto every screen. Cold, smug, already victorious. You will comply, Jitter said. The galaxy can't abide creatures like them. Holt looked at Leora, and then back, fire in his voice. Then the galaxy will change. Jitter laughed, a harsh metallic bark. You put your entire species at risk for them? Holt stepped closer to the camera. No, he said. I put myself between you and the fire you fear. Leora rose unsteadily, floating again though she didn't realize it. Waves of silver radiated from her skin as the other children echoed her power. Joer's eyes widened. No, no. Every Dominion screen flickered and died. A psychic shield enveloped the solace, a cocoon of shimmering light. Leora's voice echoed, thousands of hearts speaking through her. We are not tools. We are not broken. We are not alone. We are loved. The dreadnought fired a full broadside of plasma. The beams bent away as if the universe itself refused to let them strike. The children's combined minds reflected death into empty space where no life could be harmed. Gentle, controlled, pure. Holt turned to his ship's speakers. Broadcast this to every world. Humanity doesn't discard the vulnerable. We rescue them. The message blasted outward. An undeniable truth hurled across the stars. Empires could hide misery, but they could not hide hope. Jur shrieked orders, but his dreadnought began losing power as the psychic network gently shut systems down, disarming, not destroying. Stop this, he screamed. Stop them. Leora stepped beside Holt, her small hand slipping into his. Her voice was tiny, but it carried the force of 50,000 souls. You can't burn children and still call it order. Zhur's image flickered, then vanished entirely. Dominion ships retreated, dead in the water. No pursuit. No shots fired. Just silence. A peace-born not of fear, but courage. The bridge trembled, not from attack but relief. The crew cheered. Some cried. Baron wiped his eyes openly. Captain, they did it. She did it. Leora swayed, exhausted. Holt caught her again, holding her close. You're incredible, he whispered. I'm scared, she admitted into his neck. He smiled softly. Then we'll be scared together. She breathed in, steadying, believing. The comm chimed, Kalari vessels dropping from FDL. Sleek silver ships, peaceful and elegant. Mara exhaled shakily. Looks like someone else got the message. Holt nodded and opened a channel. A Kalari ambassador bowed in hologram form. We do not come to take them, only to honor the one who saved them. Then softly, would you accept guardianship? Officially, Holt looked at Leora, at all of them. Yes, he said, voice steady and sure. They are my family now. Leora's fingers curled into his. Then you're ours, she said. The children cheered, tiny voices ringing with newfound joy. They began chanting, home, home, home. Holt swallowed hard, emotion tightening his throat. Mara stepped beside him. So what do we do now? Holt looked out into the stars, endless and waiting. We build them a future, he said, and we make sure no child anywhere in this galaxy is ever abandoned again. The Dominion retreated, but fear does not forget. And some in the galaxy believe humans just became the greatest threat of all, because humanity dared to love what others feared. To be continued. Rocket.